Awesome. Well, it's 3:03, so I guess let's get started. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here. We really kind of just see this as an opportunity for us to check in, hear about how things are going for you guys, provide a forum to ask questions, and also, tell us any challenges you're having or opportunities and ideas for us to improve on our end. I thought, maybe let's do a quick round of introductions, just name and organization. So I'm Helen Silver. I'm with Ground Up Consulting, and I help CDA on the soil health program. Ryan, you want to go next and then tag somebody?
Sure. I'm Ryan Taylor. I'm the Soil Health Program Coordinator for Colorado Department of Agriculture. Nikki.
Nikki Brinson. I'm the Operations Manager for the Colorado State Conservation Board at the Department of Agriculture. Cindy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cindy Lair, the Program Manager for the Colorado State Conservation Board. Been working for several years on this soil health program that you are helping and working with too, and work with the 74 conservation districts in the state of Colorado. So how about Les?
Good afternoon, Les Owen. I'm Director of the Conservation Services Division here at CDA, and I'll kick it over to Adam.
Adam Ortega, what am I? I'm a CDA federal land specialist, helping out with some districts. Sorry, multitasking. I'm shut my other side down.
Perry, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, everybody. This is Perry Cabot. I'm a research scientist for Colorado State University based out on the Western Slope at the Grand Valley Research Center. I'm primarily a water guy, but I'm also involved in a large consumptive use evaluation project in the Upper Colorado Basin, and I'm very interested in furthering a discussion around the linkage between water conservation programs and soil health. Cindy's nodding her head because she knows that this is a concern of mine. So.
Great. And for those of you who maybe just joined, we're going to do a quick round of introductions and then we'll get started. Ron, you want to go next?
Hi, Ron Meyer, Colorado State University Extension agronomist, and I'm located in Burlington.
Nick, you want to go next?
Sure, we can get apparently my camera doesn't want to cooperate right now. Nick Colglazier, Director of the Colorado Corn Administrative Committee.
Great. And I think, is that Katie Russell on the phone? KG Russ? Okay, maybe they.
Oh, sorry, it is me.
Oh, hey, Katie.
I'm also multitasking.
So Katie's at the Agriculture Experiment Station down in Cortez. And Greg, we didn't get you?
Yeah, I'm Greg Flaming down in southwest part of the state and administering the soil health Star Plus stuff through Dolores Water Conservancy District.
And Emily?
I'm Emily Lockard. I work for CSU Extension in southwestern Colorado, and I've been working with the Mancos and High Desert Conservation Districts on the Star Plus program.
Great. So Ryan's going to kick us off with a review of a cheat sheet that we hope will be helpful in just kind of reviewing the process for the Star Plus. And then what we really want to do is just open it up to questions, challenges, and hear how we can improve on our end.
Yeah, so really some of the questions we've been getting a lot lately have been process questions, and so we just kind of wanted to go over kind of the workflow on the couple of things that the districts might have questions for you. or that you're working with, you might be able to give some insight to them if they're having questions about it. So the grant payment workflow works like this. So once the contract is signed and returned to the CDA, and I believe, Nikki, we have all those contracts signed, at least for all the districts.
Correct.
At that point, their initial capacity support of $20,000 is distributed. And if they have an MOU with another district and that's signed and turned in, that gives them an additional $2,000. As each consultation form comes in and is returned to the CDA, they'll get their ongoing capacity support of $2,000 per producer. And this is really where you guys are helping out with the consultations and field forms and understanding scoring sheets and stuff like that. So as they get those to us, they get their ongoing capacity support. And then later this year, as producer match forms come in, I think we've already gotten some though. The producer match forms get returned to us. And then those producer incentive payments are distributed to the conservation districts and eligible entities for them to distribute to the producers. For the equipment grants, we have the CDs and eligible entities submit a written plan. Those written plans include a description of the equipment, who's going to be using it, how will it be used, and the anticipated delivery date. If the producer receives as a subgrantee, the written plan must include how the subgrantees were solicited and selected. And just as a note, if the producer is a board member or a direct family member. So once those are submitted and approved, the CDA distributes up to $25,000 for equipment grants to the districts. And then the districts or the eligible entity can either purchase that equipment or release those funds to the subgrantee. And then we need receipts within 90 days. And then the other part of this cheat sheet here is really just the Gantt chart that kind of shows how the year is ideally supposed to progress. We had the selection process, the conservation district and eligible entity trainings, both in January and March. Contracting has been ongoing, and I think we're just about wrapped up with that. And capacity support, I think for the most part, has been distributed with a few stragglers here and there. You guys are right now in these initial consultation phases, and then we'll be distributing funds for those consultations, as well as we start to receive producer match forms. Those payments will start going out. And so this is kind of just a layout of how things should be going. Soil sampling from May on through the beginning of October, installing soil moisture probes during these growing months, as well as they become available online. And then later this fall, we'll go through the STAR verification. So this is a cheat sheet that we can share. We just kind of wanted to share that with you folks in case there were questions that you were receiving that kind of had to do with this process.
I also want to note that every Monday at 11 a.m. CDA has office hours. Greg is an ardent attender of those office hours. And you guys are welcome to come to that. I think you probably should have that information from the CDA email list, but if you don't, please put that in the chat and we'll be sure to get you that information. But it's another great place to ask questions or share challenges or even ideas. So we didn't have a formal agenda for this meeting. We just wanted to make sure that we were checking in with you guys, hearing how your consultations were going, if they were going smoothly, if they weren't, if you guys have questions about your scopes of your duties or questions from producers that you've had trouble answering, or anything else that's kind of eating your lunch or on your mind. So I think we'll just open it up with that.
Hey, Helen, Ron Meyer here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to meet with my first producer Monday for the Burlington district. I guess just a couple of questions. What kind of questions should we be expected to answer from producers?
So Ron, you have the consultation sheet and all of that?
Yeah, Ryan, I think
Okay.
you had, whatever you handed out that training day, I've got.
The training day in March or the training day back in January?
It was in March.
So maybe this is a good opportunity to just remind folks of where resources are. So on the CDA website, and you can get here by just Googling CDA soil health, it should come right up. Click on this banner, Star Plus documents and forms. And you'll see that a list comes up. There's a farm consultation form and a ranch consultation form. They're somewhat similar, but the purpose of this, particularly with your guys' expertise, is to give an assessment, get an assessment of where the producer's at, which field they'd like to try practices on, what they're open to, and what their barriers have been. And Ryan, jump in here.
Yeah, identifying goals as well. And then, and really this is your opportunity, Ron, to make sure that whatever they want to try and, whatever practices they want to try and use, fit their rotation and their goals and those types of things.
All right. That's helpful.
Yeah, so you'll go through this form with them. They should fill out the general information, and how most folks have been doing this is handwriting it and submitting it via PDF, but you could also download it as a Word document and do it that way. It does begin with some kind of threshold eligibility questions. This field is in compliance with highly erodible land, conservation, and wetland provisions. This is required for certain participants in the program. Ron, Ryan, can you look and see who Burlington, if Burlington is a CIG?
I think that's going to be CPP.
Okay.
They're not, they're CPP.
Okay, so if you are in a CPP grant or a 319 grant, and raise your hand if you don't know which grant you're in, this part doesn't matter as much. But if you are in a CIG, your producer needs to be in compliance with HEL and wetland conservation provisions, and be EQIP eligible, which is actually that's a broader umbrella for the HEL provisions. And they should fill out the rest of this form. And then you'll see the next questions are kind of introductory. What are your goals for soil health? Are they ecological, financial, or social? What are you doing now for soil health? What's working? What's not working? Which practices have you considered using or would be open to trying? Again, we're just trying to get the conversation started around what they'd be open to using. What has kept you from trying these practices, and what would it take you to adopt them? Do you have a farm plan with NRCS? So that's general background information. And then, Ron, is your conservation district going with you on your consultation?
Yeah, we'll actually be meeting in their office.
Okay, great.
Could I add something?
Mhm.
If anybody is wondering, which of the many grants that the landowner that you're working with is going to be drawing their money from, if you look at the website that we have a nice colorful map of the conservation districts and the entities, and it has a reference to the color coding refers to the different types of grants. And so It's really the CIG that brings up the highly erodible land compliance. And the guidance that we are giving to the conservation districts and grower groups that we're working with is to please talk to the resource team lead in that local office, or anybody from NRCS, but the resource team lead is often a good person to go to, and they can help verify that that individual has a conservation plan for their highly erodible land, or that they have been in compliance in their different practices that they've been using. And so they'll help to verify that for the landowner. And hopefully you guys as technical experts are not required to do that. And that's something that I think you're partnering conservation district or grower group that is working with you will probably do. And that's my thinking as far as who would approach NRCS with that question to help answer the question.
Yeah, that's a great point, Cindy. And I think too, this is why your conservation district really should be with you on any consultation you do. Because they'll also have some background information that you might not have. Also, I'm glad Cindy brought up that map on the CDA soil health page. So you can click Burlington, you can see it's in CPP. West Otero is a section 319 grant. Whoops, sorry guys. The rest of the consultation sheet is more about choosing the field that they want to try the new practices on. So hopefully, you know, STAR is a field-based program. So hopefully they've done some pre-thinking around this field. I really want to move into no-till, or I really want to try cover crops on this particular field. And so you're going to ask questions pertaining to that. After you've kind of talked about the background information on that particular field, you'll go through the process of thinking about a new practice for them to try. They might already know. They might already say, I really want to put cover crops on this field, and that's great. But it's probably still helpful to go through this exercise and where you guys can really lend your expertise of knowing about soil health and technical constraints.
Hey, Helen, what is soil armor?
Oh, soil armor is what, so we've kind of based this program around the 5 NRCS soil health principles. So soil armor is basically, is your soil covered in some fashion? There's a little bit of overlap, say with continual living root and crop rotations, but it would include, do you have a perennial plant? What's your residue management, etc. I'm happy to, I can also put some links in that describe that in the chat. Ryan, do you have anything to add to that?
No, you got it right on.
And then after the consultation that you've gone through at least this part of the form, you know, the conservation district will have some next steps. The producer will have some next steps, but this part is not really relevant to you all unless a technical assistance need comes up. Ryan, do you want to talk about filling out the STAR form too, and how that plays out here?
Yeah, so the work is really you know, distributed between 3 different parties. So you'll be helping out with the consultation form. After the consultation form, the producer or somebody on behalf of the producer should fill out the field assessment form, which is a Google document. It's a Google form, and once they submit that field assessment form, that triggers me to go ahead or a group of us to score those field forms and then send back out with the sign the score sheet that accompanied that. So the field form is once you're in it is fairly simple. You start by adding your email, and then you'll go through a list of questions specific to that producer or that field, what they want, what practices they want to try. So the consultation form really does set you up to fill out the field form. And then once that's done, then we can get it scored and get the sign off to the producer for them to put in their yard.
Yeah, and what we've done on the website, and you know, hopefully the conservation district is taking the bulk of the work with filling out the STAR form. But if questions come up on the field assessment forms, they are in a Google form format for when producers submit, but that is a really clunky format. So what CDA has done and has been really incredible is to actually put them all in a PDF format, which is easier to read. One thing that has been a question that's been coming up a lot is who does the scoring on the STAR forms? That is CDA to do the scoring. So conservation districts, producers, and you guys should not be kind of going in and doing all of the scoring on this.
Obviously, if a producer wants to go through that, I wouldn't prohibit it. You know, I mean, I'm sure everybody wants to know, you know, what their score would be. And they can do some self-assessment, but that's not something that the technical assistance providers should necessarily task themselves with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Helen, Ron here again. So we've got a budget, and the districts have a budget. So within extension, do we have a separate budget that we can charge travel to and other things?
That you kind of cut out, Ron, but I think I understood the question about budgeting on your contract. Is that right?
Right.
I'm gonna leave that more to Ryan, Cindy, and Nikki to answer.
And I wish Retta was on this call.
So you're with Extension, Ron. The best person to ask that is Retta Brugger.
Okay. Yeah, and so she's given me a grant ID number, and I've been reimbursed for some travel. So I'll contact Retta regarding what other expenses we can charge to that budget.
Yeah,
that's helpful.
Great. Yeah. So if you're with Extension, contact Retta. If you're with AES, Steve Blecker is your contact for that.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, those funds were limited, right? Or there was a specific value on each one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she told us like $1,000 or something for, I think, that chunk of money.
Okay.
But I know then there were other talks of other future stuff, and I don't know that we have that all figured out, so.
Can you raise your hand if you've gone out and done a consultation? Okay, Adam, Greg, Emily. Did you guys find anything? Do you have any like kind of lessons learned that you want to share from that, or stumbling blocks, or things that came up that we didn't necessarily prepare you for, that we could improve on?
I'll go first. I think probably the biggest eyebrow raiser for me was that the lack of computer savviness amongst all growers. I had some that were happy to sit down and fill out the forms online. I had others who had no capacity to do so. And so that became my responsibility, which was fine. But what I tried to do, and when I sent my stuff in, is I tried to reflect exactly what they said to you guys, so you could see the sorts of responses that came from the field. Because some of these growers, there's a lot of chance for a learning opportunity for them. For other growers, they already were kind of spot on and knew what they wanted to do. And through conversation, we could make a plan. And so it's really across the board on the abilities of the growers based on their system. And so I think that was kind of interesting to me anyway.
Hey, Retta. Your ears must have been burning or itching or whatever the saying
We said her
is.
name 3 times and she appeared.
Sorry, I was late. I was in another meeting, but what did you say?
Hey, Retta, Ron here. We were just talking about budgeting and how to access on the extension side. Do we have local budgets that we can charge against? You've given me that number and it's working, but I'm just wondering, we can travel with that budget. Anything else we can use for that budget, and how much might it be per district or whatever?
Yeah, I can check the budget again, but when we wrote the grant, the CDA is in the call, so feel free to correct if wrong, but the intent of the funds was really to enable your work with the soil health program. So travel, equipment, that kind of stuff is all fine. And then we did actually write into the agreement loosely the possibility of salary as well, but we can't pay salary. There's certain restrictions on that, so we could talk about that down the road. But basically you can use, I believe, Ron, we talked about how you use the account number for a county vehicle, right? You have that information. And then if you buy supplies, is that true, Ron?
Yeah, we talked about that. So
okay, that's
we'll
good.
bill differently in the Kit Carson County office. And I think that one is going to work fine for us.
Okay. And then I think for the buying supplies, if you're a CSU extension professional, or I guess traveling in a CSU vehicle or staying in a hotel to do a site visit or whatever, that all goes through the intranet, and then you use the account number. So I can send out the account number again to CSU extension. Is this helpful?
Yeah, very much. I know I've got the account number, and
okay.
So I charged one travel experience, and it seems to be working pretty good.
Okay.
Then you mentioned equipment. I'm not sure I'll need much, but maybe a soil probe. Not quite sure yet. So, do we have local budgets that we can spend out of, or is there a cap?
Oh, like for each participant?
Yes.
Like total allocated. So it's $1,000 allocated to each of us who are part of the grant. And we can talk about that. So it's not huge, but I think some people might underspend and some people might need a little more. So we could talk if you are going over your quote budget.
Okay, yeah, that's helpful.
Emily or Adam, Greg shared some words of wisdom from his consultations. Anything that you noticed or lessons learned or observations?
I'll go. I've been on I guess we did all of the folks with the Mancos and High Desert program. And I guess it's so open-ended that I think a lot of people are like, well, what can I do? What can't I do? So that has been, I don't know, it's not like a bad challenge, but it's been interesting to kind of get them to focus in on some ideas, which it is cool that it's so flexible that they can do whatever they want to do. But I think then trying to figure out, how to for their own benefit, monitor changes is something that they've been interested in. And so for, grazing folks, if like, I can help them do certain things like that. So that's something that I've added, in my offerings. But I think, so Neva and I, like the first visit we went out on, we're like, we don't know what this program does exactly or what we're going to tell you. And so it was kind of a site visit and a learning experience throughout this whole process to figure out how we could best guide people through the paperwork and that. So I don't know that we have that all figured out, but I figure we're just telling them all, like, we're all figuring this out at the same time. And so people have been really, graceful with that and are, I guess, excited because it is so flexible that they can do kind of, what they choose. With that though, some people have, and I don't know if Neva has asked some questions. We had someone who was like, can I spread milk? And we're like, I don't know. Like, so people wanted to do things that were maybe testing random ideas a little bit. And so maybe Neva asked you about that. Yeah, so what do you guys think of? Because we're like, I think it needs to be a little bit science-based.
Yeah, very much. Thank you for bringing that up, Emily. Because, we are really, we're wanting to stick with, proven science for the most part. And, if CSU has been working on it or NRCS approves of it, of course, that's going to be something we want to support. When we get beyond that, and I know that CSU and NRCS don't have every idea that they've researched, so we are going to get some things coming forward to us. But you all are agronomists and range scientists, and if it doesn't pass your test of being a legitimate potential set of practices to employ, then we'd ask you to give them some guidance on kind of what you might recommend they consider for that parcel of land, because inevitably you're going to see things in your head, oh, this is what I do here. And then as you're asking them questions about what their interest is in doing, the potential is there to have that conversation to say, gosh, have you thought about this here? And, we had a situation, and I don't think it was anybody here in your area, but, the person, all they wanted to do was to apply a seaweed-based fertilizer. And that was it. And to me, I thought, well, what is your plan here? Just switching to a fertilizer that is non-synthetic, to me, that's not enough. And, think about what you really want to do that's going to increase your soil function. And it's also in my hope that we'll all be able to kind of see through the people that might just be wanting to get something paid for and maybe not have their heart completely into the long-term idea of trying to improve their soil and really change some practices. I don't know if you have thoughts on that, Ryan.
On that one, and specifically, I read through the documents. That's in my opinion, that's an organic OMRI certified amendment. I don't think we would, there's some research done on it where there's some plant growth promoting properties and things of that nature. It's an organic amendment, just like manure or compost. But, so I mean, I wouldn't split hairs necessarily as much on that, but
be nice to be part of a bigger,
Sure, but the milk thing, I'm curious as to what the justification was.
Oh,
it was for bacteria promoting or something. We got away from it. We went towards cover cropping. So
that's a big step.
They were just spitballing ideas, but it came up and I was like, I don't, that's a bridge too far. I don't know about that. So anyway, I think we steered it in a good direction, but.
Sorry, I guess I keep posting things to the waiting room participants, which there's no one in there. I put a link up, and I think Nikki put it into everyone of the practices that are covered in the program. And, you know, again, I think a bunch of the usual suspects from NRCS are covered. And then there's not a list at the bottom that says non-NRCS practices covered by the soil health program. Certain types of novel inputs. Again, Emily, I think you did the right thing. Maybe push them towards something a little bit more scientifically based are in there. And again, a lot of those should be on a case by case basis. And if you guys have questions, reach out directly to us as well. Perry?
I was just going to I was just typing a note in the chat, and some of you may have come across or been informed of this paper that just got published on carbon sensitive pedo transfer functions for plant available water. Is that something you saw, Helen?
I certainly saw it. I'm not going to say that I understood everything in it, but Ryan and I have discussed it in depth.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I'm bringing it up is because it does introduce plant available water holding capacity as being what I understood from the paper, a goal to be of soil health, improving it. And so it introduced this nexus between water and soil health. And as I was just kind of going through and I'm not trying to let off a hand grenade in here or anything. I kind of feel like I'm sometimes just a peripheral to this discussion. But as I was going through this document on the consultation form, and I just I have to just wonder, and maybe I could just put this out there, is that if some of these programs are actually leading to available funding for producers, then and Cindy knows this, there's a lot of there's discussion going on at the state level that might even begin to include CWCB funding that could you could imagine leading to a scenario where a producer would get funded with the goal of improving plant available water holding capacity using soil health money, but also water money. And so I wonder if some of our work could, involve targeting good scenarios where, you've got the opportunity to improve plant available water holding capacity, or there already is, and you've got, good forage recovery. And so this is a lot of just, theory, but that paper made me start thinking about how much more we could include water related goals if there's actual funding available. And so I kind of maybe feel like, there's a whole other conversation there that I'd like to have, but spike this conversation today.
Yeah. So go ahead. I was just going to say, Perry, CSU did submit comments on the Colorado water plan exactly along those lines, and I can go over those with you for sure. Ryan,
okay, so
sorry.
Jim did all that.
It was primarily me, Jean, and Nathan Mueller.
Oh, great. Okay.
Writing those. Brian, do you let's set up a separate call, because I've also got something else I want to flag for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, from the moment I started this position, Cindy and I had conversations about this. I think this program is really more of a soil moisture program than it really is about soil health. And the goal here in Colorado, the reason why we picked this resource concern is because when we look at soil health practices, right, we're really talking about slowing water down across the surface, increasing infiltration rates, and increasing water holding capacity, right, through inflation and increased organic matter and things of that nature. So, I mean, water really is at the heart of this entire program, which is why we sort of chose the resource that we did and kind of structured everything around that, was to it's couched in soil health, and we utilize STAR, but it really is what we're trying to get after is slowing water down, increasing infiltration rates, and increasing water holding capacity and plant available water. So I think
Yeah,
you're right.
reason
I think
was-
there's a nexus there.
And the only reason I was asking is because in the consultation form, as I look at review 5 soil health principles, the 5 that are mentioned here don't, intuitively seem to be totally related to that which you just said. I have no doubt that they're involved somewhere in there, but I was just, and maybe I'm just looking in the wrong place, but.
No, I think so. So when we look at soil armor, right? There's no volume of solume lost that can be replaced by a 1% increase in organic matter, for example, right? So keeping the soil in place is important, but when we have a continual living root or some sort of residue on the surface, right? We slow water down across the surface, which gives the water time to infiltrate, right? That's one of the things. If we have a continual living root, we've got that surface roughness. We also have those preferential flows down through the vertical soil column, right? And so, if we integrate livestock, for example, we're really reducing that carbon and nitrogen ratio and allowing that soil carbon to really be part of the soil matrix much quicker, right? Which is going to lead to better aggregation, right? If we're not tilling, we don't have surface crusting and surface sealing. All of these things really for us, right, are all about slowing water down, increasing water infiltration, water holding capacity. It's just sort of, it doesn't sit out front, right? It's one of the byproducts of all these practices that we've kind of chosen. And that's why the NRCS identified those 5 soil health principles the way they did.
Ryan, that was a really good explanation, and I appreciate your identifying it in that particular way.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So Greg has said, I think increasing SOC to feed microbes is a primary component as well. And I think that everything in here is right. Like those principles will touch on so many of the different ecosystem service functions that we seek from soil. And of course, they're principles which will effectuate outcomes that we want to see. And then every farm or ranch, has its unique considerations, and that's how we decide which practices go. So I think this is a really, I think, Greg, you're absolutely right on too.
Yeah, I mean, really what we're trying to do is, right, to Greg's point is, the nutrient cycle is broken, right? To Perry's point, the hydrologic cycle is broken. And soil health does play an integral role in kind of repairing both those systems simultaneously.
And my goal here wasn't to sort of challenge the quality of the document. It was really just to point out that, we need to have, there's maybe more opportunities to ultimately fund these programs if there's a very clear, as you just explained, Ryan, a very clear relationship between supporting soil health and a justification to spend what you might call water money on those programs. And I just feel like maybe that's a step we really have to start taking.
So, and Perry, I don't know if you're familiar with everything we're doing, but we have enlisted Jay Ham's lab. Ian Axland has been working on this. We're trying to, for the CPP and all the Conservation Innovation Grant participants, we are trying to get out soil moisture probes to all those producers so that we can kind of monitor side by side effects of soil health practices directly on soil moisture as it pertains to that. And so we're trying to get active measurements and not just model it.
Yeah, and Jay's a great guy for all that. I was thinking, beyond CIG money, like CWCB money,
right,
as they look for ways to fund. I mean, you've got Paul Boucher, who's he's a director now of the CWCB, and this is like #1 thing he talks to me about all the time. And so, you've got people that are supportive of these programs that you could see Basin Roundtable money getting spent on stuff like this. So there's like a whole pool of funding out there that takes us beyond research to just to actionable programs that would, I mean, ultimately react to the sense of urgency that we all feel about trying
Right.
to put our water in the better places in the basin.
Harry,
So-
I would echo you completely. And just to note, we are getting, we do have a small grant with CWCB, but to your point, I think there's justification for a whole lot more in the future. So I think we're right with you on that and hopeful that that does pan out.
Retta, I want to, Retta always raises her hand, which I want to make sure she gets called on.
All right, cool. Well, I guess, you know, when we wrote the grazing land practices STAR document, we deliberately wrote in so many of the things in there could be leveraged as part of an NRCS program, so that producers weren't doing a bunch of work to get the relatively small amount of money associated with STAR relatively small amount of money compared to the cost of doing some of the practices. So we wrote that into the program, but so that producers wouldn't be doing, the hope was that they wouldn't be doing too much replicative work. It was like NRCS is going to ask for this would be also part of STAR. I don't know if we achieve that or not, but I think, Perry, to your point, and maybe more broadly, a cool phase 2 might be some sort of ability for everybody who's associated with the program, or I don't know, a document, so that we could leverage participation in STAR and then link people with broader funding sources that would enable them to do projects that would have a larger impact. So, I mean, I know there's a lot of funds available right now, but maybe that'd be a good thing. And then another small funding source is the Drought Advisor Incentives Program, which will launch later this summer. But yeah, I think in the spirit of trying to streamline things for producers and not having, so I guess the onus might be on the program and us as people who are doing the program to be able to know enough about other things that are going on so that we can make those links when we're talking with producers in the field.
Yeah, I'm sort of just saying that, you know, the federal government, you know, is one funding source, but integrating the state of Colorado government's funding, which has a vested interest in this particular issue as it pertains to demand management and every other, you know, solution to problems that the river faces. That relationship seems now, you know, capable of being created based on everything Ryan just explained. That's probably the best explanation I've heard, you know, from a person as to how these principles relate directly to the issue of demand management and more efficient water use. So let's just make that connection.
So one thing that we are doing, which is you may get questions about, is on the grazing land STAR forms, there are a couple of places where it says see CDA website for additional resources, particularly around drought planning. Lisa Aish, who's a CSU PhD student, I think a lot of you know her, and I have been working on collecting resources with a really good start from Retta on drought planning resources that are going to go on the website. And also, if you're working with STAR grazing land forms, resources on what exactly all those different monitoring methods are that are listed in there. So that's something we're going to work on and get posted on the website, hopefully really shortly, if that comes up as a question. The other thing is that we are hoping to tweak, Perry, this is also kind of relevant for you, is we're hoping to tweak the soil health testing procedure a little bit to better account for that Soil Health Institute model. Retta, do you want to bring a logistical question?
Sure. Just to my knowledge, only one contractor has gone through CSU. So I don't know if you needed more contractors, but only one person has submitted their paperwork to me. As far as a non-CSU contractor who's contracting through CSU.
So, well, I'll make a note of that. And we can follow up with that on Friday. Are you saying you would like us to encourage the other non-contractors to submit their paperwork?
Oh, yeah, if they are planning on being a contractor and getting
Yeah,
paid through
okay.
CSU, then they need to submit their paperwork.
Yeah.
But no one's contacted me, or if they have, I have failed on getting it to my brain. So
Okay,
I would need that information.
okay, great. Retta, can you just send me an email with who that was? Okay. So I know we're nearing time. Anybody have other like logistical questions as they continue this or start this process?
I have a question, but others can go because, okay, well, I'll go. I think maybe y'all talked about this already, but I think training, maybe additional training and continued communication is useful to me. I think there's lots of moving parts with this program. And so I've gotten questions, just, it feels a little disparate. So I think we need to have, unfortunately, more regular meetings potentially. And then another piece of that, a future training idea is that I think all of us, like not everybody agrees on all the practices, that are available. So as providers or technical assistance providers, I think guidance on whether, like, if a practice is approved, whether or not you agree with it, it's on the form, people can get the money. Or, how do you want us to navigate that so that we're not using our bias in ways that is inappropriate in terms of the implementation of the program?
Interesting question.
So regarding more regular contact, I think we'd be happy to set that up for sure. Retta, is your sense a monthly basis or even more regular is needed?
I don't know. My sense is I have no time, so I'm not a useful person there. But I think that, yeah, I just think this is a new program and there's lots of moving parts and there's lots of contractors. So maybe a month and a half, 2 months, something like that.
Okay. And so that's great. I think with Ryan, questions on covered practices, Cindy, how do you want to think about that?
I mean, do you want to go, Cindy?
You can start.
I mean, my thought process was that from the beginning of this, the philosophy was kind of, we wanted to open ourselves up to the creativity and the the ingenuity that exists on farms and ranches all over the world, actually. But so I that's why we pirated some stuff from NRCS and put some of our stuff in there, and then said this list is not exhaustive, that we wanted to kind of stay open and give producers an avenue to give us feedback at the end of the year about some of the stuff that they're doing. I'll give you just a quick example, and I apologize, I have a hard stop at 4, but Roy Pfaltzgraff, for example, sprays sugar water on his fields, and he does so when he knows he's getting pressure from certain insects. He does it to mimic honeydew and get beneficial insects into his field to kind of take care of that. I'm not suggesting that that's necessarily a practice we want to start suggesting. I'm just saying there's a lot of stuff out there that people are doing that's interesting and new. And I would hate to close the book on anything that had some veracity to it, but I'd love to hear what Cindy has to say.
Well, and I also feel like there are some practices that may not be universally appropriate. Just because we're recommending them statewide doesn't mean they're universally appropriate on a certain site. There are probably going to be dryland sites where a lot of consultants, a lot of TAPs are not going to say, oh yeah, just go ahead and plant cover crops. I mean, there's going to be some challenging circumstances in individual fields, and cover crops may be right for some sites and they may not be right for other sites. And that may be a bias, you could say, but I think that there's, I'm hoping that we're all using our science background, and if it's a really dryland site, very arid dryland site, and they don't have a lot of moisture in their profile, there needs to be a discussion about, well, you're saying, Farmer John, that you want to put cover crops in. I'm saying it might be a challenge for them to survive, you know, and having that discussion. It's hard to address your question completely, Retta, but I think between Ryan and my attempts at approaching the bias, you know, I hate to think that we would negate practices that are tried and true and recommended by NRCS and CSU. But like I said, there might be some sites where they might not really cover well, and they might be tricky to get to establish. So yeah, we're really grateful to all of you for your technical abilities, your scientific backgrounds, and your experience working with landowners. That's why we wanted you to be a part of this. So I'll just leave it at that.
I'm sorry, you guys. I have another meeting at 4 I have to get. Thank you for everybody's time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Adam, did you want to jump in with something? I can stay on. I realize other people probably have a hard stop, but I can certainly stay on.
I can stay on too.
Real quick, I just wanted the guidelines state that there will be like a consultation on year 1 and 3 of the program, and maybe 2 consultations in each of those years. So I got myself caught into where I felt like I was going to have to go out every 6 months and go work with them and see how the projects are coming along and like help them get along with that, which is something that I had to pull myself back from. I felt like we're really there just to come up with ideas and work through talk with the producers as to alternate practices that they could think of, not helping them actually implement the practices. So, and then there was a point where I was expected to like know each form I had to fill out, where like what the qualifications were for each producer and all these other things. And that's kind of, coming back to it in the guidelines, that's the responsibility of the district.
Yeah.
Some of the questions are getting into like NRCS financing and FSA, which I don't want any part into getting involved with that in the producer level. And that's where the conservation districts need to make sure they are responsible for that side. So I had to remind myself, and the grant guidelines was really good in helping me pull back and be like, I'm only a certain part of this. I'm not the whole thing. I'm not out there with them.
Adam, I'm so glad you said that, because you are exactly right. The conservation district, or all the conservation districts that are participating in the Star Plus, as well as the eligible entities or grower groups, they're all getting a capacity building chunk of money for doing this and leading that way locally. You really are there for technical assistance. It really isn't. You don't have to be an expert on the whole program or anything. It's nice for you to know about it, but producers, it's okay to push them back to the conservation district to ask those questions. They're getting paid to know that.
I totally second what Cindy said. And, I could see a situation where it's like a producer has moved to a practice and they're just struggling with it. Say they flood irrigate and they've moved to no-till, something along those lines. And the conservation district comes to you and says, do you have any tips on like how to do this? For sure, like that would be a great place for you all to lend your expertise. And the other thing is that for you guys to communicate with each other, maybe Greg doesn't have expertise in that, but Katie does. So, but definitely like the conservation districts should be taking the lead on all the programmatic aspects of this. So it sounds like maybe we'll do another check-in in a month and see how that goes. I want to throw out that I'm always available to do clarifications or questions. So is Ryan and Cindy too.
Reach out if you have questions. Don't wait. Definitely.
Yep. And it also sounds like we need to send out the office hours information again. So we'll do that. And we'll just, again, do not hesitate to email or call any of us. And we're just really appreciative.
Helen, yeah, I think a gentle reminder, I don't know, Monday morning or Friday afternoon about Monday morning would be great, because it's really a great forum where we all learn things from what others are experiencing that maybe we haven't experienced yet. Office hours are a terrific tool for all of us to get questions answered that came up in a prior week. And I'm really glad you guys do them. I wish there was greater participation by others, because it's excellent.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, so maybe an additional meeting is not needed. Maybe it's just coming to
Okay.
office hours that's needed. But I don't know actually if I was invited, but I'm not. Anyway, we can work it out.
Yeah, Cindy, let's work with Nikki and Raquel, maybe.
I got it. I'm sending it out
Okay.
right now.
Oh, awesome. I wasn't sure if you were still
It's
there or
coming your
not.
way. Nope. Yeah, it's good. And it's if you guys want to save this Zoom link, it's the exact same link for our office hours, but I will send you a meeting invitation, and then I'm fine tuning the calendar invite, so you will get both and you can determine what works best for you.
Great, and that's going to all the taps who aren't here, right, Nikki?
Yes, it is going to everybody.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. This has been really great. Yeah, thank you for your time.
Definitely.
Thank you.
We really appreciate having you help with this, and look forward to talking to you next time. Take care, everybody.
Nikki, you're the best.